What's going on, everyone? I just got back from seeing Morbius, and so let's get into a review for it. Morbius is a Marvel film set in the Sony universe. It's about Dr. Michael Morbius, who's suffering from a rare blood disease, and he decides he's going to use his genius to find a cure for it so he can help himself and his best friend and anyone else suffering from this rare blood disease or any others. And of course, inevitably he finds a cure for himself, but it's not exactly a perfect cure. It does give him superhuman abilities, but then at the cost of him becoming essentially a vampire. So he's stuck with trying to control it so that he doesn't hurt people. And of course, there's always that other person who comes along, gets their hands on the same serum, whatever you want to call it, and however they take it into the evil, the bad direction. And so we have our movie. What I want to say first is I'm going to give my quick kind of review on how I feel about it, give my actual rating, and then go into a non-spoiler review, because this is a really polarizing film. I feel like just negative reviews like crazy for it. And so I want to go over that, but in more detail. So I'll have a spoiler section after this. So you can watch this if you haven't seen the movie, go see it, come back, watch the spoiler section. If you've already seen it, you go straight to the spoiler section, whatever you want to do, but that's how I'm formatting this video. First off, I do want to say, I don't think this movie, for me, is nearly as bad as the reviews, like anywhere close. I think it's far better than The Amazing Spider-Man 2, far better than Venom 2. I probably like this one more than Venom, if I'm being honest, and for me, I might be biased in the fact where Venom is like my favorite supervillain, anti-hero, and they made him out to be a complete joke, especially in the second one, just always cracking jokes, and I hated that. And in the first one, there's a little bit more balance, but ultimately I'll go over why I like this one a little bit more. I can see why people don't like this movie. I'm not saying it's a perfect film. It's not one of my favorite superhero movies, but I just think it's getting a whole lot of flack when there's a lot of movies like this that don't get flack. And personally, some of the aspects of this movie I did like, and it's not I had low standards going into it, but it's not about being above the low standards. It wasn't like, it's not as bad. I genuinely thought it was a decent movie. It's very predictable. Some people are saying it's very confusing or convoluted, and I feel like that is so opposite from the truth. This is about as linear and straightforward as it gets. It's the most played out hero formula of all hero formulas. You have someone with some sort of issue. They try to find something to fix the issue. They find, a serum or whatever, some artificial source to fix the problem, but it doesn't fix it 100%. It gives them some sort of abilities, and then they use it for good. Someone else likes what they got, so they try to get it. They get it. They use it for bad. That's literally what this is. That's it from a T. It does not diverge into any other subplots. It is literally about Morbius and about him essentially trying to find a cure and then reverse what he did, and there being someone there to stop him or be in his way, essentially, and him trying to stop this other person because they're being bad. So it's so, when you hear me say it, if it sounds like it's like that regular formula, it's what it is. So if you hate that, you will not like this movie. Jared Leto, yes, his last few performances weren't the best, and he's always talking like he's on his dying breath, like all the time, and it comes off to a lot of people like he's just playing it so serious. And I think that's one of these weird things. It's like, yeah, you should be having fun in a movie like this, especially, it's not about a real life like situation, but when you're an actor, you're always trying to do your best, whether you're playing an over the top character or you're playing a grounded character or super serious, whatever the case is. Like you're trying to play it well, and if this is what he thinks is the best way, how do I feel about it? It could have been better, but I don't think he was horrible. I definitely don't think it was horrible. Matt Smith as Milo, I thought was really, really good. I don't know if people are gonna think he's bad. I haven't heard too many reviews based on the acting or anything like that, so I'm not too sure how people feel about him, but I thought he did well. They have Jared Harris in here. He's a really good actor. Um, he's not in it too much. He doesn't get much room to shine, so it's hard to really say he did good or he did bad because there was not much there for him to do. But aside from that, I mean, what I will say too is this is probably the most graphic, like the most close to rated R PG-13 superhero movie that I've ever seen. In movies, I always thought that if you had like not seeping, but like dripping blood, that caused the rating to go up, or if the more blood you had, like for it to go up. And in this, it just feels like it's brutal. It's like there are some sequences that are just, they're borderline horror sequences. There's one specific sequence in a hospital that's literally a horror scene. And when they like get cut or slashed, it's like, it's not like you see it flesh cut and blood like going dripping down, but you see it through the shirt and it's seeping and things like that. And you know, the only thing I can think of is they didn't make it like a closer to a black looking color, which maybe allowed them to keep that PG-13 and kind of find a loophole in it, because it takes out maybe some of the realism. If it's not as red, you know, then it doesn't feel like blood as much, maybe. So for me, ultimately, to finish off the non-spoiler section, I think this movie is getting a real bad rep. It's getting a lot of flack for the same reasons that a lot of, not the same reasons, but for a movie that follows the same exact formula as a lot of other movies that don't get near as much flack. And so I personally think it's unwarranted, but there are a lot of aspects that I thought it was extremely predictable. Not the greatest performance from our main character, Jared Leto. Some scenes, you know, it's an hour and 40 minutes long. Some scenes are really cut fast. You don't, you know, they kind of establish things really quickly, super, like kind of just unbelievably quickly for certain things, like the friendship between him and Milo from the literally the first scene, or I guess the second scene you could call it technically, was literally equivalent to the main character, I forgot their name, from the Sharks and from the Jets from West Side Story, falling in love, like literally meeting eyes at a dance, going behind the bleachers, immediately following and kissing, and then day later saying I love you. Like it's like that fast. There's other aspects that they don't really explain, so I get why people don't like the movie. I just think the amount of dislike and the outroar, like the verbalization of how much people don't like this movie, I think is a little strange for me personally. So ultimately, my rating on this is going to be a 6.6 out of 10. Did I just come up with that rating? Yes, I did. But I can do that. I have the numbers. It's like those little like filters, like Snapchat filters that everyone uses, where it's like what in celebrity do you look like, and it filters through. That's kind of how my ratings work, if you ever wondered. So if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to stay for the spoilers section, then definitely go see it. I recommend it. I think it's decent. You know, if most people don't like it, so if you base it on that, you might want to wait. If you liked it, subscribe, hit the notification button so you know when I have another review coming out. Hit the likes, leave a comment. You know, am I crazy? If you don't want to see my spoilers because you're so revolted at my non-spoiler review and you want to leave like you're an idiot because of this and this and that, let me hear it. I want to know. And but yeah, so I hope you guys have a good day. And for those of you who are staying, let's just get right into the spoiler review. So spoilers, leave now if you haven't seen. The first thing I was going to go over is essentially the second scene where they become friends really fast, but I did that in the non-spoiler, so I won't go over that again. The establishing scene, if that's even a thing, I know there's establishing shot, but the first scene, which is probably the most confusing of it, is you see it in the trailer where he puts his hand through this, I don't even know, this machine. I don't know what it's for. I don't know how it really matters. But he, maybe to prevent all the bats from just flying through all at one time, but they can get through, so I don't know. But he puts his hand through, he's trying to say there's something within these, there's something within the DNA of vampire bats that can potentially cure his disorder. He does that, and you know, it's a weird scene for the rest of the movie because it's like, what, you know, how did he get a hand of all these vampire bats. Like now they're stored in his building and they're just there. Like, how did he even capture all these? What did he do to get all these into his building so that he can use them for a test? And also the way they were kind of talking about these bats were like they would tear anything to shreds if they get a hand on it. But it's like, so okay, so this first scene, none of them were attacking any of them, and then in his building, how did he get them there, like without them tearing him to shreds? That part I don't get. It's probably the most confusing aspect for me. There's like this love story between him and his nurse Martine, who, you know, they could have just left that love story out. You know, that part doesn't really matter, but it's an hour and 40 minutes. So if anything, I thought this movie could have been a little longer to explain some things. But you know, there's certain devices in the movie that always just seem to be right there, or just seem to just happen in the benefit of Michael Morbius. Like, for example, when he first becomes a vampire and he can't control himself, he has no idea what's going on. Of course, they're on a boat to avoid, like, because what they're doing is illegal, so of course they have mercenaries to watch him over the boat, and of course these people are like dickheads, and these are the first people that he kills. Like, he could have been surrounded by, you know, good people that were protecting them and that wanted him to find the cure, and you know, he couldn't control himself and he killed these good people. But of course they want to establish that he's a good guy, even though in the comics he's an anti-hero. So it's like, you know, he's not necessarily a good guy. I mean, he's not out here like trying to kill like innocent people. But I thought Matt Smith, I want to talk about, I haven't been seeing what people are saying about the acting per se. I think Matt Smith did a really, really good job. I thought he was great as the villain. The idea though of having two villains that are the exact same is the kind of disappointing part, because if I compare to, like, let's say the Hulk, which essentially, like, frame for frame is essentially the same movie as this, and way more people like that one than this one. I would say the one thing that's kind of different about that is that Abomination, yes, he's technically the Hulk, but he has a uniqueness to him, whereas Milo's character, or like Matt Smith's character Milo, when he just is like the same, he's a carbon copy of Jared Leto, but he's just a villain. What I will say is specifically to what I didn't like at the end. So everything I predicted until we got to the end, and when, you know, what I did like is that he just went for it with Milo, where he kills Martine, he kills her, and you know, in a lot of other movies the hero would have just gotten there in time. So like the two things that would happen is like the superhero gets there in time, or the person's dying, and so the hero takes some drastic measures, like essentially gives them the same abilities so that they can be alive still. Like, I thought when she bit his lip, she was doing that so she could get his blood so that she can become this vampire and she can live. But then it went a different route. I was like, oh, that's surprising. Like, okay, cool. Like, the route they went was like, oh, she did this as a, like, it's okay, like, drink my human blood so you can be stronger, so you can defeat this guy. Like, just kill me, I'm dying anyway. So like he does that, and I didn't expect that, and I was like, oh shit, nice. But then of course later on at the end, her eyes open, turn red, and she's a vampire. And it's just like, I wish they didn't go back on that. It's like, I wasn't expecting her to just die already, and for him to be the one that kills her, like the two love interests, you know, it that was a little bit disappointing for me. But at the end of the day, like I said, I mean, mostly I gave my full review on why I kind of enjoyed it in the non-spoiler. It's just I enjoyed the kind of horror-ish, like graphic aspect of it, and I didn't think it was boring. I didn't think the writing was like so appalling. As far as the two end credit scenes, I think it's cool. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know if they're gonna establish a Sinister Six. I didn't know Morbius was a part of it, so whether or not it's actually gonna happen, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure the voice that came through at the end wasn't Michael Keaton, someone who sounds like him, even though they had him in the movie. The only thing I can imagine is that when they shot it, they got, you know, they got Michael Keaton to play the role where he goes into the prison cell, and you know, and he's in the end credit scene, and then maybe they they thought, you know what, let's add a second post-credit scene. Let's tease Sinister Six and see how people react or something. So they maybe couldn't get Michael Keaton, so they had someone that sounded like him, because there were certain aspects where it's like it sounded like him a little bit, but not a lot at all. It could not have been him in the suit. If I don't know if he played in this Vulture suit in the Spider-Man Homecoming originally, but it definitely could not have been him in this suit. Like it definitely sounded like audio that was added in after the fact, and it just didn't sound like him to me completely. So I could be completely off on that, but that's just my opinion. I think it was weird. It didn't get me like super excited. Also, I think partially because they established in this movie that like Morbius is gonna try to be good, and so it's just, I guess if I'm thinking at the end of Venom 2, the way that they said that like Spider-Man killed Mysterio, they think Spider-Man's maybe a bad guy, but at the same time Vulture's a bad guy. So it's that part's confusing. If any part of the movie is confusing, there's so many questions I have about that where it just doesn't really make sense. Hopefully the second one they can hone in and make it a lot better. The only thing is they need a much better villain. They cannot make carbon copies of villains all the time, and that's what Sony seems to be doing. It's like if it's not Spider-Man, everyone else, they just make the same exact character just as a bad guy. They did that for the first Venom, they did it for the second Venom, and it's just, well, Carnage, you know, obviously Carnage is amazing, but essentially, like, again, it's the same. They're the same. But I don't remember the dude's name in the first one is, but they're both Venoms. They're like all Venoms. So we need to establish some sort of difference there. Ultimately, I enjoyed the movie, so that's my spoiler review. Nothing too crazy on that one. And with that being said, I hope you guys liked the video. Again, I hope you subscribe, hit the notification button for any time I come out with more videos. Like, comment on what you think. Try not to do spoilers in case someone, you know, is watching, or at least put spoilers in, you know, all caps before you say anything so people don't know, or so people do know and they can skip your comment. But with that being said, I hope everyone has a fantastic day. See you on the next one.